Hi, this is Ben Hart from BitcoinInstitute.net. Today we're going to be looking at what I call Bitcoin's Immaculate Inception. Also why Bitcoin is so special, and why nothing can replace Bitcoin. And why I think Bitcoin's price will reach $1 million per coin in the next 10 years. Now we also have something called the next Bitcoin halving coming up in March of 2024, when the supply of Bitcoins entering circulation will be cut in half from 6.25 new Bitcoins every 10 minutes to 3.125 Bitcoins entering circulation every 10 minutes. This halving event, this halving of Bitcoin supply, occurs every 4 years. And historically, we have seen exponential Bitcoin price increases in the run-up to these halving events, then for about 12 months after the halving event. And by the way, nothing I say here should be interpreted as investment advice. What I do here is go through my own thought process and what brought me to Bitcoin. Consult your own financial advisor for any investment decisions you might be considering. Okay, so let's get into why I think Bitcoin will hit $1 million per coin in the next 10 years. Why Bitcoin is so special, and why Bitcoin's immaculate inception can never be replicated. Because it's the unique circumstances surrounding Bitcoin's creation that can never be replicated. Bitcoin's unique immaculate inception is why nothing will replace Bitcoin as the only successful, truly decentralized money. It's Bitcoin's remarkable beginnings that made it possible for Bitcoin to become truly decentralized, something no other crypto asset has been able to achieve. And it's Bitcoin's truly decentralized structure, its decentralized nature, that makes Bitcoin the world's only indestructible, unconfiscatable money. All the other cryptos are imposters, trying to surf in the wake of Bitcoin's amazing success. Notice also that I say immaculate inception, not conception, because that would be blasphemous. So let me launch in now by describing to you my own journey into Bitcoin, and how I got into Bitcoin in the first place, and why Bitcoin is so different from the 20,000 or so other trash coins and tokens out there. My son Peter first told me about Bitcoin, I think in 2013. He told me he had bought one Bitcoin for about $200. And I asked him what it was, and he said it was digital money. And I said, well, why the heck did you do that? What the hell is Bitcoin? And he explained it to me. He told me it's digital money, and that there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins, and that the point of Bitcoin was to separate money from state, and to remove humans from the governance of the money. And he told me that with Bitcoin, the money is governed by math and a fixed set of rules, not by humans. And I'm not sure if Peter used these exact words, but that was the gist of it. And I asked him where he learned about this, and he said he'd learned about it on Reddit, and I think on some forums, and perhaps Bitcoin Talk Forum, I'm not sure. And my reaction was that, well, this sounded very interesting, but I also said that I had serious doubts about whether Bitcoin would actually work. Either it would be hacked, or if it was successful, competitors would come along. Or if Bitcoin ever really were successful and became a serious challenge to the government, governments would collude to take down Bitcoin. I did not think that the United States government would just sit there and do nothing and allow Bitcoin to replace the dollar as the world reserve currency, even if Bitcoin is superior money. Nor would the European governments, much less China and Russia, just sit idly by while Bitcoin renders their state-issued currencies obsolete. So while I thought that Bitcoin was a very interesting idea, and did seem to be gaining traction among some libertarian-minded computer scientists, there was no chance the governments of the world would allow Bitcoin to render their state-issued currencies obsolete. So Peter bought his Bitcoin for about $200, then sold it when it hit about $2,000. I guess he panic sold. And this is true for most early Bitcoiners. Very few of the early Bitcoiners got rich from Bitcoin. And of course, there was the famous purchase of 2 pizzas from Papa John's for 10,000 Bitcoins. And this happened in May of 2010 when a computer programmer from Jacksonville, Florida, named Laszlo Hanez, made this request on the Bitcoin Talk forum. I'll pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas, like maybe 2 large ones, wrote Hanez. A 19-year-old software engineering student from California answered the request, a fellow named Jeremy Sturdivant. He had 2 Papa John's pizzas delivered to Hanez. On that day, the market had established the value of one Bitcoin as 1/3 of 1 penny. Sturdivant says he quickly spent the 10,000 Bitcoins that he received for the 2 pizzas. Hanya says he mined and spent approximately 100,000 Bitcoins in the early days of Bitcoin. And that was the story for most of the early Bitcoiners. For them, Bitcoin was an interesting lab experiment. Few really expected Bitcoin to reach $10,000 a coin, then $20,000 a coin, then $69,000 a coin in November of 2021. Then it dropped to $15,000 a coin in the wake of the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX scandal, the Terra Luna collapse, and the Celsius fraud. And there were other scams as well. Now, none of these scams and frauds had anything to do with Bitcoin. But these scandals affected Bitcoin's price negatively, as the media and the average person out there just saw Bitcoin as part of crypto, when the truth is Bitcoin has nothing to do with the rest of the crypto world. More than 20,000 cryptocurrencies, coins, and tokens have sprung up in the wake of Bitcoin's stunning success. 99% of them are scams or structurally unsound. And I say 99% because I have not actually studied all 20,000 of these cryptos. And I talk about why Bitcoin has absolutely nothing in common with the rest of the crypto world in this video here and this video here. In fact, much of my channel is about exposing these grifters in crypto world and explaining why Bitcoin is so different from all the other cryptos. If you're finding this video useful, please drop a like and subscribe to this channel. This will really help boost the channel and get this information out there to people who need it. And if you'd like to dig deeper into Bitcoin, check out my best-selling book on Bitcoin. It's on Amazon in all the formats: print, Kindle ebook, and audiobook. What makes Bitcoin unique is it's the only crypto asset that has achieved true decentralization. In fact, Bitcoin is one of the few crypto assets that is actually trying to be money. 99.9% of these other 20,000 crypto assets aren't even trying to compete with Bitcoin as money. And Bitcoin is the only decentralized money that has actually succeeded. Decentralized meaning that there is no central administrative governing authority. Bitcoin is run by math and automated algorithms, not by people. Almost all the other crypto assets out there are really unregistered securities, meaning they act like stock offerings. These other crypto assets were funded with venture capital and then issued initial coin offerings. These so-called initial coin offerings are just public stock offerings under a different name. And they're an effort to get around laws governing public stock offerings. And the Securities Exchange Commission should be cracking down on them. And most of these crypto coins and tokens are just pump and dump schemes, as I explained in this video here and this video here. And this was the Sam Bankman-Fried business model. And it continues to be the Andreessen Horowitz business model. Decentralized is just a marketing buzzword for these companies when they issue these trash tokens. Their coin offerings are decentralized in name only. These coins function like penny stocks, like in the movie Boiler Room.
This stock is blowing up right now. The whole firm's going nuts. Hold on, let me open up the door to my office. See that, Doc? That's my trading floor. Now I have 1 million calls to make to 1 million other doctors who are already in the know. I can't walk you through this right now. I'm sorry. Okay, let's do this.
Because the trading volume for these trash tokens is so low, it's very easy for hedge funds like Alameda Research to manipulate the price. So they issue a token, they award themselves tokens prior to the initial coin offering, then put them on the market, then pump the price early with some purchases to get some buzz going on social media, then use social media celebrities to hype the coin, and then dump the coins on retail with a blow-off top. The pattern is always the same. All of Andreessen Horowitz's trash token prices look like this. And I talk about Andreessen Horowitz's business model here. Unfortunately, Bitcoin's incredible success has attracted all manner of fraudsters, scammers, grifters, and con men trying to piggyback off of Bitcoin by issuing one scam coin and token after another. What makes Bitcoin different, or one thing that makes Bitcoin different, is that the computer engineers who were involved in the Bitcoin project had been trying for years, even decades, to create digital money that would not be under the control of humans, that would be in the form of a synchronized distributed ledger. And none of them thought they were going to get rich off the effort. The father of digital money was an American computer scientist named Dr. David Chaum. Chaum earned his PhD in computer engineering from the University of California at Berkeley in 1982. He went on to become a professor at New York University and later at the University of California. As early as the early 1980s, David Chaum started writing about how cryptography could be used to create digital money and to allow anonymous transactions. In 1981, Chaum published a paper titled Untraceable Electronic Mail Return Addresses and Digital Pseudonyms. Chaum's dissertation, his PhD dissertation in 1982, proposed a digital vault system that includes all the key elements in Bitcoin except proof-of-work mining. Chaum's thesis outlines a decentralized distributed system for achieving consensus among nodes, chaining the ledger history into blocks, and timestamping blocks. Chaum's dissertation even provides the code for the system. In 1983, Chaum outlined a proposal for digital cash, which introduced blind cryptographic signatures. Chaum developed a system that allowed users to deposit money from a bank into the network, then use the money in ways that could not be traced by a bank or by government or by any third party. Chaum also developed a way to prevent double spending, meaning money inputs and outputs can only be used once. In October of 1985, Chaum published a paper titled Security Without Identification: Transaction Systems to Make Big Brother Obsolete. Chaum is a libertarian. Chaum developed the first digital money called eCash, which was designed to hide the identities of users. Chaum invented blind digital signatures, mixed networks, and other cryptographic protocols. Chaum also wrote extensively about the threat to freedom presented by technology. While digitalization and computerization certainly hold out the potential for enormous human progress, computerization can also be used to enslave people, Chaum wrote. Computerization and digitalization allow government, in collusion with big tech, to track a person's every keystroke, internet search, movement, and thought. In 1985, Chaum warned that big tech companies would be able to compile digital dossiers on every person, and this would create a digital prison with total surveillance. Chaum's 1985 prediction turned out to be 100% dead-on accurate. Google and today's big tech companies track and catalog your every keystroke, your every movement, every Google search, every communication, all stored in the cloud and cataloged and constantly combed through by artificial intelligence to create profiles on you and your life and to predict your every move, like in the movie Minority Report. Chaum believed that digitalization, far from being a force for freedom, was far more likely to lead to enslavement, a high-tech totalitarianism that would even be more sinister than the nightmare totalitarian society envisioned by George Orwell in his classic novel 1984.
Accordance with the principles of doublethink, it does not matter if the war is not real, or when it is that victory is not possible. The war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be continuous. The essential act of modern warfare is the destruction of the produce of human labor. The war is waged by the ruling group against its own subjects, and its object is not victory over Eurasia or Eastasia, but to keep the very structure of society intact.
Chaum also believed that all money would ultimately become digital. He wrote that the trend toward a cashless society would then become a form of digital surveillance, allowing AI-powered government to track your every purchase and movement of every dollar in and out of your bank account. The IRS or any government entity could then just seize all your money and assets with a push of a button. And that's the big danger posed by the so-called central bank digital currencies that are on the way, called CBDCs. With central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, the government will be able to just turn off your money if you are not doing what the government wants you to do. Perhaps some government bureaucrat thinks you're driving too much, perhaps leaving too big a carbon footprint. So with CBDCs, with government-issued digital currencies, of the kind envisioned by the World Economic Forum, the government will just be able to turn off your money. Or actually might even set your budget, might say that you can only spend your money on these things for these purposes. No more kerosene, no more coal for your charcoal grill, for example. So Chown predicted all of this in the early 1980s. And he dedicated himself to finding ways to protect people from this push-button totalitarianism that was ever growing and expanding in this emerging digital world. Professor David Chown is widely viewed as the father of decentralized digital money. He was focused on the money issue because whoever controls your money controls you. Some believe that David Chown might even be the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, since Chown is credited with developing most of the key pillars of the Bitcoin system architecture, with the exception of Bitcoin's proof-of-work mining system. And by the way, David Chown is still alive and looking good. Heard him interviewed on some podcasts the other day. But he denies being Satoshi. He's very low-key and understated. In addition to inventing eCash, Chown also outlined a system for using blockchain technology to secure voting systems that would be verifiable and auditable end-to-end without revealing how people voted, thereby protecting the secret ballot. Chown's work inspired a movement called cypherpunks, who dedicated themselves to creating honest money that would replace corrupt government-issued fiat money. When you think about it, the government's money printing press is really a license for government to increase taxes infinitely, to near 100%, without having to go to the trouble of getting Congress to pass a tax increase. Passing tax increases is never politically popular. So this is why the United States went off the gold standard completely in 1971, when U.S. money became a 100% fiat money printing system. Government did this because government wanted no restrictions on its money printing press, no restrictions on its counterfeiting operation. When the U.S. government abandoned the gold standard completely in 1971, 1 ounce of gold cost $35. Today, the price of 1 ounce of gold is $1,900. This means the dollar has lost more than 98% of its value since we went off the gold standard in 1971. Today, the average car costs about $45,000. This same car would be costing about $1,000 if we had stayed on the gold standard. Money is supposed to be a unit of measurement. Money is supposed to allow you to store the value that you earned with your hard work for later use. But the U.S. government, with its money printing press, has stolen 98% of what people were paid in 1971. This hidden tax called inflation hits lower income and middle income people hardest. People who are earning more cash, more money than they need to survive, generally invest in assets that tend to appreciate in value over time when measured against the dollar. So wealthy people invest in the stock market or real estate or rare art. So inflation is a big driver of increasing wealth inequality. Inflation is actually a giant wealth transfer program from the poor and middle class to the rich. There really is no middle class anymore, as there was in the 1950s and 1960s, before we went off the gold standard. This was the big problem that David Chown and these computer scientists tried to solve. The problem of corrupt, dishonest, government-issued money. Whoever controls your money controls you. That's why David Chown spent decades of his life trying to find a way to separate money from state. And David Chown's work inspired a worldwide network of about 700 computer engineers in the 1990s to collaborate in an online forum on creating a decentralized digital money that could not be corrupted by humans. In 1997, as part of this effort, a British software engineer named Adam Back created a digital money called Hashcash, which has a structure similar to Bitcoin. It utilized proof-of-work mining and included mechanisms to prevent double spending. Back holds a PhD in computer science and a degree in distributed systems. Bitcoin, remember, is a synchronized distributed ledger. Back was also one of the first of two people on the cypherpunks mailing list to receive an email from the pseudonymous Bitcoin creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. Some have speculated that Adam Back is Satoshi, but he denies it. In 1998, a reclusive computer engineer from China named Wei Dai published a proposal for launching B-Money. Dai outlined a protocol where a copy of a ledger is distributed to everyone on the network. B-Money was never actually launched. Also in 1998, a computer engineer named Nick Szabo published a proposal for BitGold. BitGold was never launched. But Szabo's proposal combined decentralization, different elements of cryptography, time-stamped blocks stored in a title registry, similar to blockchain, and generated by using a proof-of-work number guessing system. BitGold's structure is so similar to Bitcoin that some speculate that Szabo is Satoshi Nakamoto. Elon Musk believes that Szabo is Satoshi, but Szabo denies it. In 2004, a computer engineer named Hal Finney created what is called reusable proof-of-work that produced unique cryptographic tokens that could only be used once, much like the unspent transaction outputs in the Bitcoin system. Finney outlined how reusable proof-of-work, using a SHA-256 hashing algorithm, could be used to secure digital money. But Finney's system lacked decentralization. Again, what makes Bitcoin so special and so unique from all the other digital currencies and assets out there is Bitcoin achieved true decentralization. Not fake decentralization, not decentralization in name only. True decentralization. The other cryptos that claim to be decentralized are decentralized in name only. And I go into this in other videos. Bitcoin achieved true decentralization, which is the one-of-a-kind miracle of Bitcoin. On August 18, 2008, this anonymous computer engineer, going by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, registered the domain name bitcoin.org and launched a website. Then on October 31, 2008, a few weeks later, Satoshi published his historic white paper on the cryptography mailing list that was titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. On January 9, 2009, Satoshi released version 0.1 of the open-source Bitcoin software on SourceForge. He launched the network by defining the Genesis block, Block 0. The mining of the first block produced a reward for the miner of 50 Bitcoins, that being Satoshi. He was basically just testing the system. On January 11th, Satoshi wrote the following on the Bitcoin forum. Quote, announcing the first release of Bitcoin, a new electronic cash system that uses a peer-to-peer network to prevent double spending. It's completely decentralized with no server or central authority. Hal Finney answered, congratulations to Satoshi on this first alpha release. I'm looking forward to trying it out. Total circulation will be 21 million coins. It'll be distributed to network nodes when they make blocks, with the amount cut in half every 4 years. Then Hal Finney offered this speculation, quote, it's interesting that the system can be configured to only allow a certain maximum number of coins ever to be generated. I guess the idea is that the amount of work needed to generate a new coin will be more difficult as time goes on. Finney goes on, quote, one immediate problem with any new currency is how to value it. Even ignoring the practical problem that virtually no one will accept it at first, there is still a difficulty in coming up with a reasonable argument in favor of a particular non-zero value for the coins. In the same discussion thread, Satoshi offered this prediction, quote, the real trick will be to get people to actually value the Bitcoins so that they become currency. I would be surprised if 10 years from now, we're not using electronic currency in some way, now that we know a way to do it that won't inevitably get dumbed down when the trusted third party gets cold feet. It could get started in a narrow niche, like reward points, donation tokens, currency for a game. Initially, it could be used in proof-of-work applications for services that could be free, but not quite. Satoshi also talked about decentralization being Bitcoin's key feature. Quote, I think there were a lot more people interested in the 1990s. But after more than a decade of failed, trusted third-party based systems, DigiCash, etc., they see it as a lost cause. I hope they can make the distinction that this is the first time that I know of that we're trying a non-trust based system. Bitcoin was designed as a zero-trust system. In addition to Bitcoin being the only successful decentralized money, what makes Bitcoin very different from all the other cryptocurrencies that came later is that these early cryptographers, these early computer engineers, had no expectation that they would become rich from the project. They were scientists, not venture capitalists. They weren't running hedge funds. They were driven by their libertarian ideology, their commitment to freedom. They wanted to find a way to create a money system that would just run on its own, that is incorruptible, that would be governed by math, not by people. They wanted to create an escape hatch from corrupt money, corrupt political systems, and the coming digital prison that was being built by Google and big tech in collusion with big government, and entities like the World Economic Forum. There were no stakeholders or shareholders in Bitcoin. No one would own or control Bitcoin. While some imagine that Bitcoin might snowball on its own if its adoption were to grow, they thought it just as likely, and probably more likely, that the project might not go anywhere. It might just end up like all the other failed attempts over the decades to create a secure, decentralized digital money. In none of their conversations on the Bitcoin Talk forum did any of them express any expectation of making a lot of money. In a very real sense, I consider these computer engineers as similar to America's founders. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and the 56 signers of America's Declaration of Independence were not trying to get rich by going to war against the British Empire, the world superpower of that day, the largest empire in world history. America's founders were already wealthy. George Washington was a revered general in the British Army. They had everything to lose by going to war with the British Empire, nothing to gain personally. America's founders were motivated by their desire to create the first nation in human history conceived in liberty. That is, the first nation in human history founded on the principle that the guiding purpose of government should be to protect and secure individual liberty. The Declaration of Independence states, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." That was the American idea. In this same vein, these computer scientists, who contributed to the development of Bitcoin over many years and even decades, were motivated by their libertarian political beliefs, not by any desire to get rich from this project. These computer scientists could and probably were making plenty of money with their expertise in computer engineering. Many of them were professors at universities with PhDs. These computer scientists were motivated by their opposition to a creeping totalitarianism and a rising new big tech oligarchy. On October 22, 2011, Satoshi sent his final message to the Bitcoin community. And it was a pretty nondescript message. Quote, "There's more work to do on DOS, but I'm doing a quick build of what I have so far in case it's needed, before venturing into more complex ideas." End quote. And that was it for Satoshi. He left the scene. Some theorize that Hal Finney is Satoshi because Hal Finney was the recipient of the first Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi, 10 Bitcoins on January 12, 2009. And Finney died of ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, in August of 2014. Another reason some think Finney was Satoshi is Satoshi's 1 million Bitcoins are still sitting at Satoshi's Bitcoin address. Not a single coin has ever moved. My bet is Satoshi refers to this group of cryptographers who worked on Bitcoin for many years, even decades, to include Hal Finney, Adam Back, Nick Szabo, David Chaum, and others. Perhaps they have a pact to keep Satoshi's identity secret. And for good reason. Because the entire point of Bitcoin is that no one owns Bitcoin, no one controls Bitcoin, no one runs Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a decentralized money network governed by math and protocols, not by people. Bitcoin is incorruptible money with a fixed set of rules, the most important rule being there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. So why do I think Bitcoin will reach a price of $1 million? Perhaps within the next 10 years or so. Well, because of this Immaculate Inception, that captured people's imaginations, like my son Peter in 2013. And that made the Bitcoin idea go viral. It was an organic birth. It was not a manufactured birth, not part of a venture capital project. Now, when Bitcoin was first launched, of course, it was not decentralized. It was under the control of Satoshi, who was doing all the coding. Then when Bitcoin was ready, Satoshi released Bitcoin into the world. And because this network of mostly computer engineers who had been interested in the Bitcoin idea had been working and sharing information on this project for years and even decades, there was already a core group of Bitcoin fanatics who had fallen in love with the idea. They just weren't sure it could be done. But Satoshi did it. And the real genius of Satoshi's structure for Bitcoin is that it incentivizes decentralization for reasons that I cover in this video here and in this video here. So Bitcoin is digital money in the form of a synchronized ledger of transactions distributed every 10 minutes to a worldwide network of more than 1 million miners and validating nodes. So why do I think Bitcoin has a very good chance of reaching the $1 million per coin price level in the next 10 years? Well, because I think the Bitcoin network has reached critical mass and probably can't be stopped, even by a state attack. China attempted to destroy Bitcoin in the summer of 2021. China outlawed Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin transactions. Many thought that might be the end of Bitcoin because 60% of the world's Bitcoin mining at that time was being done in China. In fact, a lot of Bitcoiners saw the heavy concentration of Bitcoin mining in China as perhaps a fatal vulnerability to Bitcoin.
伟大的同志们辛苦了！同志们好！
But what happened? Well, Bitcoin mining in China dropped to zero. Many Chinese Bitcoin miners then left China for more hospitable locations, to places like Kazakhstan, Iceland, and the United States. Within a few months, the Bitcoin mining hash rate was back up to where it was before the China crackdown, and then continued to head up. So Bitcoin survived an all-out attack by the government of the world's biggest country, by China. By China's totalitarian communist regime. Now it looks like China's government has pretty much given up on trying to destroy Bitcoin. About 20% of the world's Bitcoin mining is now being done again in China. So Bitcoin mining is coming back in China. If China's totalitarian communist regime can't destroy Bitcoin, can't even come close to destroying Bitcoin, who can? Bitcoin has no headquarters to attack. No CEO, no board of directors to arrest. Bitcoin is not hosted anywhere. Bitcoin can't be deplatformed by Amazon or Google or Microsoft or any company. Bitcoin is simply a distributed protocol. It's located on more than 1 million computers out there that have downloaded the Bitcoin software.
Lack of Bitcoin wasting to hashing. Nasty used cooking oil. How dirty is it? And this is my baby right there. Mining and guess what? It's hashing. Kaboom!
To destroy Bitcoin, government would have to destroy every one of these computers, and would also have to destroy every offline copy of the Bitcoin blockchain ledger. If there is just one copy of the Bitcoin blockchain ledger somewhere, Bitcoin still exists. The network would grow back. That's the power of decentralization. Because Bitcoin is so decentralized, that's what makes Bitcoin pretty much indestructible. Bitcoin right now is a $450 billion asset. The number 2 asset in terms of market cap is Ethereum. Ethereum is about half the size of Bitcoin. But Ethereum is not really a competitor to Bitcoin because Ethereum is not trying to be decentralized digital money. Ethereum says it's trying to be a decentralized internet for decentralized applications. The problem with Ethereum is it's not the least bit decentralized. Ethereum is less decentralized than JP Morgan Chase Bank, less decentralized than the Fed. So Ethereum is in no way an improvement on our corrupt fiat money printing system. Ethereum is governed by its creator, Vitalik Buterin, who is constantly changing the rules of Ethereum.
So I think I'll have to summarize that one of the ways that I think about this in a more philosophical way is like proof of work is based on the laws of physics, and so you sort of have to work with the world as it is, right? You have to work with, electricity as it is, hardware as it is, what computers are as it is. Whereas because proof of stake is virtualized in this way, it's basically letting us create a simulated universe that has its own laws of physics.
And as of now, the applications on Ethereum don't work. And I explain the various problems with Ethereum in this video here. And then after Ethereum, there are some stablecoins, which are products of companies. Stablecoins are theoretically pegged to the dollar or other fiat currency and operate essentially as check writing services. They're essentially extensions of the fiat money printing system. So stablecoins don't compete with Bitcoin as decentralized money separate from government. And there are quite a few problems with these stablecoins like Tether and USDC that I'll be talking about in another video. The biggest stablecoin is called Tether. Tether has a market cap of about $44 billion. It's about 10% the size of Bitcoin. And there are a few other coins that try to compete with Bitcoin as decentralized money, such as Monero and Litecoin. But Monero is less than 1% the size of Bitcoin. Litecoin is about 1% the size of Bitcoin in terms of market cap. And they have tiny followings, and because their networks are small, they're very vulnerable to attack. The larger the network, the more secure a decentralized network becomes. So after 14 years, Bitcoin continues to be the 800-pound gorilla of crypto world, and especially in the realm of decentralized digital money. There is no competitor to Bitcoin in the realm of decentralized digital money. And in its 14-year history, Bitcoin has never been hacked. Bitcoin being a $450 billion asset right now, if Bitcoin could have been hacked, it would have been hacked. Bitcoin also has a strong brand. If you ask the average person on the street to name any other crypto asset other than Bitcoin, very few would be able to name any. Everyone's heard of Bitcoin. And some will just say crypto. So Bitcoin has established a strong brand in people's minds and is truly global. And because of Bitcoin's strong brand in people's minds, and the fact that it truly is global, these factors also make it very difficult for any other asset to dislodge Bitcoin. Ethereum, for example, is mostly a US-based phenomenon. Hardly anyone outside the United States is using Ethereum. Certainly not in the underdeveloped world, where people want honest money. They're not concerned about having a decentralized internet for decentralized applications. The entire world knows about Bitcoin. Bitcoin, of course, had a big price drop in 2022, and this was largely due to all the crypto scams out there, the Sam Bankman frauds, the Terra Luna scandal, the Celsius scandal, and other scandals. But now Bitcoin's price appears to be on the upswing again, as all the trash tokens got flushed down the toilet in the Great Cleansing of 2022. A great cleansing that was much needed, in my opinion, because this great cleansing established the integrity and the reliability of Bitcoin. During all of this time, while all these scams were coming to light, SBF and FTX and Terra Luna, all these centralized crypto projects, Bitcoin never skipped a beat. New users were added to the Bitcoin network every week and every month. There were more Bitcoin miners at the end of 2022 than there were at the start of 2022. So Bitcoin once again established its resilience. So now the entire world is looking again at Bitcoin. People now see that Bitcoin survived the 2022 crash just as it survived the 2018 crash. Not only did Bitcoin survive, but it looks like Bitcoin is stronger fundamentally than ever. So despite this crash of 2022, Bitcoin is still a $450 billion asset. It's still bigger than Visa in terms of market cap. Now gold is a $10 trillion asset worldwide. Now this gets into why I think Bitcoin will cost $1 million a coin within the next 10 years. Because consider this. Gold is a $10 trillion asset. So then the question becomes, is Bitcoin superior to gold? So let's compare them. Bitcoin has a fixed supply. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. The supply of gold increases by about 1.5% per year. But gold is difficult to carry and store. In the event of a political system collapse, you need to be able to exit the situation quickly for a better location, to wherever civilization might still exist in some form. You can't very easily carry gold bars with you across borders, and certainly not through airports. Gold is also very expensive to store. If you store gold at your house, you can easily be robbed. And the purity and authenticity of your gold is very difficult to verify. So gold is not very practical. Gold has been considered a good store of value for 7,000 years, but now we have a better technology called Bitcoin that achieves all that gold achieves, but better. Bitcoin allows you to carry your wealth with you, on your phone, or by writing your code on a piece of paper, or in your head if you can remember a 12-word phrase. So Bitcoin is superior to gold in almost every respect. And Bitcoin is superior as money to fiat currency because of Bitcoin's fixed supply. And transactions are instant and super cheap, especially if you use the Lightning Network. And stores, merchants, and e-commerce sites will slowly get used to accepting Bitcoin because it's so much cheaper. By accepting Bitcoin, stores can avoid the 2 to 3% transaction fees that Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and the credit card companies charge. Why pay a 2 to 3% transaction fee when you can pay just a few pennies to transact with Bitcoin using the Lightning Network? Lightning is the layer 2 being built on top of Bitcoin to enable instant transactions that are almost free. So Bitcoin is just superior money in every way to the fiat money system. People are waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is not just an investment. It's a better way to transact business. It's a better way to buy things. One reason your Starbucks coffee is so expensive is because of the transaction fee. And Bitcoin is global. There's no currency conversion fee. So Bitcoin is the future of money. Bitcoin is also uncensorable money, meaning that no one can stop your transactions. No one can interfere with your business. With Visa and the credit card companies, they approve or reject your transactions. With Visa and the credit card companies, well, they can shut down your business at any time. That can't happen with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, there's no middleman approving or rejecting your transaction. There's no one who can freeze or lock your account. Even the IRS cannot freeze your business if you're using Bitcoin. As more and more people see Bitcoin's many advantages over the fiat money system, they will start adopting Bitcoin. And I think adoption will be sudden and exponential. It will be explosive. It will be like what Amazon did to bookstores, or what Netflix did to Blockbuster video rental stores. One day these stores were there, the next day they weren't, or at least it seemed like that. It just all happened so quickly, almost overnight. And I think that's what's going to happen with fiat money as people see how much better and easier and more secure it is to transact business using Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin is a zero-trust system, and because no one can interfere with your transactions, this makes Bitcoin a much more secure and reliable way to conduct business. So right now, Bitcoin has a market cap of about $450 billion. If Bitcoin were to reach gold's $10 trillion market cap, well, that takes the price of one Bitcoin to about $500,000 a coin. Now the global stock market and bond market together total about $200 trillion. So let's say investors just decide to allocate 5% of this to Bitcoin. Well, that takes Bitcoin to a price of $10 million per coin. And then let's say that the world figures out that Bitcoin is superior money to fiat money. Well then, at that point, the price of one Bitcoin becomes potentially, well, almost unimaginable. But what about the argument that something better will come along? Perhaps a better technology will be developed. Well, that hasn't happened yet, and Bitcoin has been around for 14 years. The longer Bitcoin is in the top spot by such a wide margin, the less likely it is to fail. Bitcoin now has about 180 million users, and this network of users is what gives Bitcoin its value. Money is no good without a big network of users who will accept it. Without a network of users, the money has no value. Facebook is valuable because of its network of 2 billion users. If you copied Facebook's software and tried to launch a competitor, that wouldn't do you any good because what you can't replicate is Facebook's network of 2 billion users. And the same with Bitcoin. Anyone can copy and paste Bitcoin's code, make a few tweaks, try to create a better version of Bitcoin. And many have tried to do exactly this. I could create a new cryptocurrency in 15 minutes. More than 20,000 digital currencies, coins, and tokens have tried to compete with Bitcoin. All have failed, most miserably. And the few that have survived have serious shortcomings, and really aren't even trying to compete with Bitcoin. They're trying to do something else. Web3, DeFi, or NFTs. There's no such thing as Web3 or DeFi, by the way. These are just marketing buzz phrases thought up by venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. And NFTs really don't even reach the level of fad like the pet rock did. Someone actually paid $2.9 million for Jack Dorsey's first tweet. The last I checked, you can buy that tweet for $14,000, so it's lost 99.5% of its value. $14,000 for Jack Dorsey's tweet is still absurdly overpriced. So that's NFTs and the rest of the crypto world for you. And I think the world is generally waking up to the fact now that the rest of the crypto world is a bad joke. And the reason Bitcoin won't be replaced by another decentralized money network, in my opinion, is that no other effort can replicate the unique circumstances of Bitcoin's founding, Bitcoin's immaculate inception. Yes, Bitcoin was centralized at the start. It was under the control of Satoshi, who designed it and wrote the code. He then released Bitcoin into the world, like a bird. It would then either fly on its own, or it would not fly. It would crash to the ground. Bitcoin would have to survive on its own, like an animal in the wild. So Bitcoin could have just crashed and burned. So Bitcoin might not have survived, might not have taken off, might not have gained traction in the minds of people, might not have captured the public's imagination. In that case, Bitcoin would then be just another failed lab experiment. There had been many previous attempts at creating decentralized digital money, starting with David Chowne's work in the early 1980s and through the 1990s. None of these efforts were able to achieve decentralization, that is, operate without human administration, until Satoshi released Bitcoin, which then went viral. A virus can start in a lab under human control and design, but if the virus gets out of the lab and out into the world, humans can no longer control it. The virus then spreads on its own. That's Bitcoin. So yes, Bitcoin was centralized at the start, when Satoshi was designing it and writing the code. But once Satoshi released Bitcoin into the world, Bitcoin then just spread on its own. And if Satoshi were to come back onto the scene and wanted to change Bitcoin, he couldn't. There's no backdoor for Satoshi to get into Bitcoin and make changes. Bitcoin code is open source. So Bitcoin now is almost like a living and breathing entity. The billionaire tech entrepreneur Michael Saylor has likened Bitcoin to a growing nest of cyber hornets. The bigger the network grows, the bigger the nest grows, the more secure it becomes. Because the more than 1 million miners and validating nodes out there spread out across the world are incentivized financially to protect the network. Because by protecting the network is how they protect the value of their own Bitcoin, for which they are working so hard to earn and to accumulate. Plus, they spend a lot of money on their Bitcoin mining equipment. One good ASIC Bitcoin mining computer now costs about $18,000 to buy. Soon after Satoshi released Bitcoin into the world, Bitcoin spread by capturing the imaginations of people. First on the Bitcoin Talk forum, to include my son Peter. And I didn't get in until 2019. Now, the way Bitcoin spread is different from a virus. The mechanism is different. A virus spreads by multiplying. Bitcoin's absolute scarcity is the mechanism that spreads Bitcoin, because scarcity enhances value. Bitcoin's fixed supply of 21 million coins is for a world of 8 billion people. This means there's only enough Bitcoin out there for everyone in the world to have 0.0026 Bitcoins. This means that if you are fortunate enough to own just one Bitcoin, well, that might mean you will be in possession of 1/21 millionth of the world's money. But fortunately, Bitcoin can be divided infinitely. The smallest denomination of US money is 1 penny. But with Bitcoin, 1 million sats equals 1 Bitcoin. And if we need even smaller fractions of a Bitcoin, so everyone can have some Bitcoin, we could call these smaller fractions something else, perhaps bits. So Bitcoin can be subdivided infinitely. And what I think is awesome, and I would say not replicable, is that these computer scientists who spent years and decades creating Bitcoin, like David Chow, Hal Finney, Adam Back, Nick Szabo, and hundreds of others who contributed to the project, were not in this to get rich. Getting rich was not their motivation. They were in this to save freedom, from government's partnership with big tech to create a digital prison. Without Bitcoin, there would be no escape from this totalitarian digital prison that's being built by big tech in partnership with big government. There would be no off-ramp from our corrupt political and fiat money printing system. There would be no off-ramp from what the World Economic Forum has in store for us, because whoever controls your money controls you. Well, that's it for now. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you'd like to dig deeper into all this, check out my best-selling book on Bitcoin. And look at my other videos on Bitcoin on this channel. Also, head on over to bitcoininstitute.net to subscribe to my free Bitcoin Weekly Report. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you back here for the next video.